Goeienaand, good evening, fellow South Africans, and I really do believe that those investors who are foolish enough to buy Eskom bonds will be on the phone to Cyril Ramaphosa and his little stooges about the situation related to their loans to a company called Eskom, which has been fuckamanied. And let me tell you why. Bloomberg is taking a lot of interest in Eskom right now, and when Bloomberg takes interest in a company that's deeply in debt, it is not a positive thing. The top job at one of South Africa's biggest and most troubled companies is open again for the 11th time in a decade, and it's unclear anyone is ready to fill it. Now, I know who is probably the only person in South Africa who could take on that job, and that is Ted Blom. But of course, because he's a white person, and because of BEE, he will be overlooked. I mean, he's the only guy who's talked sense through the whole charade in the last year. But of course, no, they can't see beyond the color of the skin. It's not black, it's white. And it's not a racist government, no. No, it's not a racist government, no. This is what I think about the ANC government. Pogma on, assholes. Anyway, let's get back to what he's talking about here. State Power Utility Eskom Holdings SOC Limited will be seeking a replacement for Fakamane Hadebe, who announced plans to quit after just 16 months in the post. The role came with unimaginable demands that has taken a toll on his health, he said, and he was leaving in the interest of his family and the company. Oh, the poor little crybaby. Poor crybaby. As Peter from Mexico says, the article claims that the Eskom CEO job is the toughest in the country. This is a blatant lie. It was never a tough job for the guys pre-1994, and it's nothing compared to the jobs of the CEOs in the embattled South African mining industry. And why are they embattled? Because of an incompetent and corrupt ANC government. That's why they're embattled. It is only tough for people who are incompetent, inexperienced, and selected on the basis of the color of their skin, their political affiliations, and their willingness to be corrupted in order to steal taxpayers' money and enrich the ANC elite. It is difficult for them. There are hundreds of competent, experienced CEOs who will be able to turn this around quickly, despite the havoc and destruction already caused. But unfortunately, they are all white and not corruptible. So there goes the country down the drain. I think we've actually reached that point. I think it's beyond repair, quite honestly. But that's a very interesting observation there by Peter. Thank you, Peter. And Peter actually brought this article to my attention. Okay, whoever takes his place, this is Fakamane's place, will have to oversee a fleet of poorly maintained old power plants battling to produce enough power to supply Africa's most industrialized economy. That ain't going to last. Plus, Eskom is saddled with more than $30 billion of debt, has about 16,000 more workers than it says it needs, and wants massive bailouts from a government that does not have the money to spare. I can't think of anyone within Eskom who has the political savvy and technical knowledge required of the CEO or who would want the position, said Peter Attard Montalto, the head of capital market research of research company Intellidex. It is an impossible job. Eskom supplies about 95% of the nation's electricity, mostly by burning coal. Less than 2 decades ago, it was ranked one of the world's best power companies, but the government initially stymied it from investing in enough new capacity to keep up with demand and blocked private companies from investing in generation That's led to intermittent blackouts since 2008. Eskom's woes increased after Jacob Zuma took over as South Africa's president in 2009. Testimony given at the official inquiry suggests that Zuma's allies worked with the utility's top managers to loot billions of rands. Zuma and the former executives deny wrongdoing. Yeah, of course they would. They are so crooked. Fakamane Hadebe, who previously worked at the National Treasury and headed the State Land Bank, and a new board were brought in to sort this out. Shortly after Cyril Ramaphosa replaced Zuma as leader of the ruling African National Congress in late 2017. While they made headway in repairing financial controls, the accounts continued to deteriorate as electricity sales failed to generate enough cash to cover operating costs and interest payments. Ramaphosa, who went on to succeed Zuma as president, announced plans in February to split Eskom into generation, transmission and distribution units, a move he said should make it easier to manage the utility and raise financing. Later that month, Finance Minister Tito Mboweni allocated a 3-year 69 billion rand, or $4.8 billion bailout for Eskom, way less than the utilities say it needed. Now, the interesting thing here is that you have Ramaphosa talking about splitting the company into 3 parts, and one of the financial experts raised a very interesting issue. He said it ain't going to happen because the banks and the investors who've loaned all this money to Eskom are not going to see their equity being threatened. And they basically hold them by the proverbials. I'm talking about Eskom. Hadebe was the 10th CEO or acting chief executive since 2009. His departure appears to have been on the cards for a while. What has been known behind the scenes since April is now official and public. Anton Eberhard, a professor at the University of Cape Town and part of a government task team set up to get Eskom back on track, said on Twitter, "Now we need urgently to strengthen both executive management and the board." What does the candidate need? Being able to run a complex organization and have a deep understanding of the global power sector, as well as being an expert in politics and motivating people, according to Iraj Abajan, head of Pan-African Investments and Research Services, who has advised the government on economic policy. The person needs a clear appreciation for leadership and decisiveness in a highly politicized and demoralized organization, he said. Now, this is like the leaky bucket. You know, a leaky bucket that's got a hole in it. They just keep on throwing more money into it, and it just keeps on pouring out the bottom. The answer is, quite honestly, to build a new, or have a private electricity company come in and establish something without the restrictions of BEE, because BEE are just a cancer on South Africa, and it's racist. Anyway, that's just my perspective. Please remember to subscribe to be kept informed, ring the bell for the updates, and have a great evening. Bye.